Why does the revival book exist, and where did it come from on the Dream SMP? As we know, the revival book is a massive part of the story. It's been used to revive many of the members from their deaths after losing 3 cannon hearts, and a lot of the story revolves around getting this revival book from Dream. But where did it actually come from? Well, if you remember back in the Pogtopia days, when Tommy Innit and Wilbur were going against Schlatt, they were trying to gather as many members on the Dream SMP as possible to fight against him, and one of these members being Dream. Now, Dream halfway through the war switches sides and joins Jay Schlatt to try and help him survive this whole war. At the time, there was no mention of the revival book, but Dream did mention that there was something given to him for him changing sides. It would later be revealed that this item was the revival book, and that Jay Schlatt had this all along, but never mentioned it and never used it. One of the main theories that came with this was that Jay Schlatt gave it to Dream because Jay Schlatt knew he would die. Therefore, Dream can use the book on Jay Schlatt, but that never happened. Since then, Dream has used the revival book on people like Tommy Innit, Wilbur, Vicstar, and Laserbeam, and that's about it. There's not too much information on the revival book because it's not been used a vast amount of times. Until recently, that is, where Dream has actually been testing the revival book to see its limits. He's been using Vicstar and Laserbeam to kill them, revive them, kill them again, and revive them again. He'll do this over and over again to basically see how far he can push the revival book, and also people, because I'm sure it takes a toll being killed and revived over and over again. Now, the revival book was sort of thrown into the story randomly, and recently Dream went onto a Twitter space, which is sort of like a live speaking thing, I don't know how to describe it, and he explained how he came up with the idea for the revival book and how it actually came around. He starts off with somebody asking the question whether he likes being the villain on the Dream SMP, which leads him into talking about the war with Jay Schlatt.
I remember during the original, or one of the wars, when it was like Schlatt against everyone essentially, that originally was supposed to be Schlatt and like a bunch of people. It was supposed to be like 50-50. Everyone going against kind of fighting that war, but then it was going to be like me on that side, etc. And then nobody ended up like being on Schlatt's side, and so I was like, fuck, like no one wants to be viewed as the villain in this case, other than Schlatt, who obviously didn't care. And so I was like, okay, I guess I need to swap to the other side, but like, why would I do that? And that's how the revival book like came about. It was to cover that plot hole, because I literally just switched for no reason. We had no reason for me to switch. It was just, hey, we literally need, otherwise it's just Schlatt versus everyone, and obviously he just loses. So we needed, they needed me to switch. And so I just switched, and I was like, look, we'll figure out how to explain it later. And everyone was like, okay. And then later I was like, what if Schlatt had a revival book? Blah, 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 blah. So that was kind of how the revival book came to be. I don't think I've ever said that. It's kind of new lore.
So the revival book's only existence on the server is due to a plot hole, and because nobody wanted to switch sides to Jay Schlatt and help him during the war, because they didn't want to be viewed as the villain. And obviously Dream just didn't sort of care. He's the biggest YouTuber out of them all, so he probably gets the most hate and can sort of deal with it at this point, which is quite a sad thing to like hear. I don't think anybody should hate each other for a role-playing Minecraft server, you know, but that does mean there is a version of the Dream SMP somewhere out there that could have had no revival book, which makes a lot of the story completely different. A lot of the motives for people's actions does revolve around this revival book and how Dream shouldn't have that sort of power. But if it never existed, Dream wouldn't have this power, and therefore the entire story would be completely different. And when people died 3 times in the story, they died forever. They could come back as a ghost form and do all the limbo stuff, but their character probably would never get revived again and come back to sort of normal. And speaking of never coming back to normal, did you know that Jay Schlatt and Quackity had a bet, and if Jay Schlatt won that bet, he'd get revived? Well, it turns out he may have just won that bet. So check out the video which is on screen right now for more of an explanation.